What the government funds, the government regulates.
Exactly.
What the government funds, the government regulates.
That should be like, ding, moral of the whole story.
That, truly.
Yeah. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's episode of Tea Talk. I am interviewing a friend of mine, Miss Lori Beth Aldridge, and I'm so excited about this episode because I think it is extremely important, especially for homeschooling parents or people who want to homeschool. Either way, if you're interested or you're already homeschooling, I think it's imperative that you hear this conversation and you pay attention to Lori Beth. Homeschooling is under attack. And when you say that, I find a lot of times people are like, what are you even talking about? Like, here goes these crazy right-wing people again thinking everything's under attack. But the reason I'm going to tell you that I believe homeschooling is under attack, not only because of what's going on in our own country, which we will talk about in this interview, but also because of what has been going on in other countries around the world. Yes, they're not America, but I do believe that there is a worldwide agenda or goal for everyone to kind of get on the same page about some things. And one of those, I believe, is kind of an anti-homeschooling agenda. If you think I'm crazy, if you didn't already know this, homeschooling is actually illegal in Germany. It's also illegal in Spain. And it's not just illegal, it's illegal by threat of, like, you could be punished by being thrown into prison. Oh my gosh, and of course, I forgot, I'm fairly confident that it is now illegal to homeschool in France as well. If this episode moves you and you like it, please not only give it a thumbs up, but also please feel free to share it. I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Lori Beth. Be sure to go check out her stuff as well, which I will link down below. So I am very, very excited to have Lori Beth here. It actually feels a little bit surreal. I told her this the first time I met her because I had started following Lori Beth on Instagram prior to meeting her. It turns out we run in the same social circles, which was not a complete surprise because I kind of connected dots, but it was a little bit of a surprise. Like the night that I met her, I was like, Lori Beth? She probably felt so weird. I was like, I've been wanting to meet you.
Aloha, it's really nice to meet you. Yeah, it was super fun. It was a very memorable meeting. I started to go to the bathroom and you were like, oh, I was like, oh, I'll be right back.
I have to go to the bathroom. Could we pause? Oh, yes, I'll let you go to the restroom. It was a very memorable meeting.
It was awesome.
And Lori Beth is from Hawaii. That's the Aloha, if you didn't catch that. 20 years?
Almost 20, just shy of 20 years, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Not to get too serious, but we're gonna get serious. You guys know, if you watch my channel, I'm very passionate about homeschooling. Mm-hmm. I was homeschooled from 6th grade on, and that's where the passion comes from, which on that note, if you've never heard my whole like homeschooling story, even the stories I've told on the channel, I'm not sure what it's gonna look like over on her podcast, but we're doing kind of a collab. So you'll need to check out Lori Beth just for the sake of checking her out because her content is awesome, but also we're doing a collab. So I'm actually gonna be going on her podcast and talking about my homeschooling story. And my homeschooling story is why I am so passionate about homeschooling. I was just saying this to her before we started. My life like completely changed after homeschooling. I felt like in a lot of ways I was living in, honestly, like a prison prior to that. It was something where like every day of my life I would wake up being like, I can't believe I have to go back here again. And I would just think in my head, this is it. Like there's no getting out of it. Like I don't want to do this. And so when I was able to become homeschooled, like I said, it changed my life in the best possible way. And in my opinion, what I've said to you guys over the last like year or two is that I really think that there are people within the government, outside of the government, that are trying to ban homeschooling,
sure,
for lack of a better way to put that. And Lori Beth is a little more educated on all of this than I am. So I'm not sure where we want to start with this. Maybe if this feels like a comfortable place to start, how did you, I know the story, the gist, but I think it's interesting if you want to share it. How did you get into homeschooling?
Yeah, sure. Well, my children, my oldest child is 9, my youngest is 15 months, and I'm 42 years old.
So
but
amazing.
I've been homeschooling for over 15 years.
Wow.
Because before I had my own children, I worked as a personal assistant to an international rock star. And when we would go on the road, I would homeschool their children, or I would educate their children on the road, if you will.
It's so cool.
I guess we call it road schooling at this point.
Oh, I love that.
But to me, it was homeschooling because the children were actually in the Waldorf school, and the Waldorf education philosophy is fascinating to me.
Me too.
And when we would travel, I'd say, well, how can I best help the children keep up with school? And a lot of times they'd be like, just experience the world. That in and of itself is an education. I'm like, no, but seriously, like, what math problems do we need to do? And what do we do this? Because I was a public school kid, K through 12. In fact, I got perfect attendance K through 12. No. Let me tell you, you're sitting in your like graduation ceremony and they're like, and we have a random award for perfect attendance K through 12. And I was like, what lame person is getting this?
Stop
and
it.
And it was me.
Stop it. No, you didn't. You literally were like, oh, loser.
I was like, oh, well, it's me. Okay.
That's so amazing.
Well, my public school's mind was being brought to the table, and I had a job to do. These were someone else's children that I was responsible for.
Yeah.
And as their personal assistant, not their nanny, but their personal assistant, I didn't want to bring on a tutor because I didn't want one more personality to manage.
Yeah.
And also, I have my bachelor's degree in communication for the child, and then my 2 masters in children's literature and creative writing for children.
Oh, that's right. I just learned that in that group chat the other day. That's cool.
Then in my mind and in everyone else's mind around me, I was qualified to teach the children. So I quickly realized, though, that the Waldorf teachers were right. I bought the Waldorf curriculum.
Wow.
And took it very seriously. Would read to them, make schedules, do the color charts, everything for them. But it wasn't until I think it was our last tour. We were in Europe and we were standing on the stage of the Colosseum in Rome, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, this is it. This is how children need to be educated. This is how real education happens. Because by the grace of God, the Waldorf curriculum we were studying, they were studying ancient Rome. And I was standing in Rome looking at this curriculum and thinking, there is nothing in here that I can't learn by living and experiencing Rome out here.
Wow.
And that was when I was like, curriculum just out the door. Living life and doing it this way is just so much more beneficial. So I went back and told my then boyfriend that when we got married and had children, we would have to arrange our life so that I could stay home and homeschool the children. He asked me to marry him 6 weeks later, and we got married 4 months later, and we definitely had our baby however many months after that.
And then it was time to homeschool.
And then we were homeschooling. So that's how my homeschool journey started. And so my kids have been homeschooled from the very beginning.
Yes.
And they're now 9, 7, 6, and 1.
Wow.
And people always ask what grade they're in. And once you're deep in homeschool world, you're like, it doesn't really matter.
I have no idea. We're moving forward. That's something funny too. You said from the very beginning. Do you feel like, I think this is obvious, right? Like homeschooling starts at birth. Like you're just instantly, there is no pause. My son's in a homeschooling group right now, and people will be like, how old is he? And I'm like, well, he's only 3, but to me, we've been schooling him from the beginning, like reading books, trying to teach him letter recognition, like moving his pace and learning in life forward.
Sure.
So when you said that, that made me think about that.
Sure. Well, if we want to look at it through the societal lens, if you will, when you put babies into daycare, there is an infant room teacher, there is a preschool teacher, there's a 2-year-old teacher, and so that the teacher role just becomes whoever is their main adult influence in their lives. And we have turned it into a formal expert title where you have to be an expert. But the reality is we are the experts on our own children. We are the ones who literally made them, literally birthed them, literally adopted them, have them all the time. We are the experts on our children, but I just think it's a shame that our society has been told that they can only turn to experts, someone who has a higher degree or knows somewhat more than they do about certain topics. And I can't get on board with that. I can't get on board with other people saying that they know more about my children than I do as their mom.
I'm trying to not let my head spin off into 14 different directions.
I understand.
Because I know a lot of people get really offended when you talk about this. They're like, dude, I had a full-on college education. I am an expert on, childhood development or childhood education. But, we were talking beforehand, I think, maybe I said this at the beginning too, that homeschooling completely changed my life. And a big part of what changed, there were so many facets and things that changed for me right afterwards, but was realizing, wow, everybody learns differently. And so even though I don't want to knock this idea of studying, being a childhood development expert or learning how to teach children in a way that you think is correct or the expert way to do it, there is part of me that's just I don't think everybody learns the same way, because the way that I learned and the way that I was able to advance once leaving that specific setup for what they deem to be education, I feel like I was able to jump ahead so much farther in things that interested me and benefited my life. Sorry, go on.
It's okay. In regards to that, actually, specifically, we talk about lifelong learning all the time, and
Yes.
we're constantly learning. And it seems like this is a general cultural concept that we strive for. Well, we're always learning. And yet we haven't embraced that all the way.
Yes.
And then there's those of us in the homeschool world who, I think the way forward as homeschool teachers specifically is for us to embrace lifelong learning and realize that we are going to be learning along the way.
Yes.
We are not experts showing up, presenting a curriculum as the experts, and we are right, and we know what's right, and we know what's best for our kids, but we're also humble enough to say, like, oh, well, there's different ways of looking at things.
Totally.
Rather than just showing up with our expert pants on and saying, like, oh,
Our
here's
expert pants.
here's the information. I mean, it's like big girl pants.
My expert pants are on.
I'm going to put my expert pants on and explain this to you. Instead, we're humble enough to say, like, well, there's actually lots of different ways of looking at this.
Yes.
So just... I get really frustrated with how does people present information to kids and act like we cannot present information to kids, or that it doesn't count as education. So when we have our babies at home, we're teaching them about the world. We are their teacher in the purest sense.
Yes.
And lifelong learning happens from birth until we die.
Yes.
So yes, are we teaching our kids at home? Absolutely. We don't have to be experts in baby stuff in order to show up and love our kids well.
Yes.
We can show up as parents, and I do think we should show up as parents and with a lifelong learning attitude ourselves, and say, oh, there are things that I can learn about this age and stage. There are things I can learn from other people, but those other people, those experts, aren't the only choice, only source. We are also a source.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I know I said this before, but as you're saying this, it's like my head's spinning off 42 different directions. I keep wanting to make comments about that article you sent me, which we're gonna loop into. But yes, the expert thing, I completely agree. I have a friend recently that said to me she had never considered homeschooling till she saw me talking about it in a video. And the thing that flipped her switch was when I said that when I left school, I honestly feel like I had lost like a love for learning.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that my mom said to me when I first came out. She goes, no, we kind of did it illegally, so hopefully there's no retroactive punishment. Like, we didn't actually do homeschooling through the government for 7th and 8th grade. And she goes, you need to learn to love to learn again. That's what we're focusing on. And so her whole thing was like, what do you want to learn? Let's bring this passion to life. And she actually was a big part of guiding me and making me realize that I loved history. I thought history was just very like, oh, all these dates and this and that. My mom was like, history is people, history is stories, history is life. And she really reignited a passion. I can't even say reignite. I didn't even know it was there until I had gotten out of a school setting and was able to approach it in a way that made more sense holistically to me and my family. And so that's a separate thing. But I think about that when you talk about learning for life, because I didn't have that mindset till I left schooling. And I was in a private Christian school, so it wasn't like when people maybe sometimes bash public schooling. Like, I had an upper echelon education, I guess you could say, and I hated it.
I didn't enjoy my public school education, and I'm starting to figure out why at 42. And it's through books, and it's through lifelong learning. It's me taking the time to read for myself and understand things. So I do read for the podcast, but I also read for myself too. Sorry, it's so dry here. And I know.
I'm literally like, I'm parched.
I read for myself. And so I've read John Taylor Gatto's books, Dumbing Us Down and Weapons of Mass Instruction, and that makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
The things I hated about my public school education
He
made
like
sense
gave you
to
words.
me. Exactly. So now I have the words to really process that all the way. And I do think it is my responsibility to process my feelings on education instead of just coming to the table and being like, I think a lot of people assume that some people homeschool because they hated public school themselves. Well, that's not the whole reason.
Elizabeth has a lot of reasons she thinks we homeschool. Go on.
That's true.
We'll circle that.
But I'm also reading a book called Hold On to Your Kids. Have you heard of this book?
Oh, no, but I love that title.
I do too. But it's also not just for parents. I think it's for anybody who grew up in our peer-oriented society. I've always kind of felt like in school, it was the blind leading the blind. Like,
I mean,
it
that
was
makes sense.
The students and peer stuff and peer politics constantly dictating our lives. When you ask me about what it is I learned in high school, it had nothing to do with the actual content, everything to do with the peer politics of everything. So and Hold On to Your Kids, the authors, who are a pediatrician and a child psychologist, actually refer to a peer-oriented culture and how we've stopped tapping into generational wisdom.
I mean, yes.
And so we are the products of that.
Yeah.
Despite our age difference, we're both experiencing that. And so we're coming to the table as parents with a peer-oriented way of looking at life. And I think that's really hard.
Oh my gosh. Dude, when I left my private Christian school and I enrolled in our local community college, I was instantly like so much happier, not only because of the different things that I was being taught. I told you I tested into like an advanced English class, but on top of that, and I want to relate to this, I don't want to get off on a tangent, all the things like being able to go to the bathroom without having to ask for it. But the thought's escaping me. You were just talking about peer-oriented. Yeah, the fact that I was able to be around different ages, because in a college setting, there's full-on adults there, and then also, you know, older teens. And being able to be around those wider age ranges was something that I instantly treasured. Like I instantly noticed the difference in how we were all engaging with each other.
Yes. In fact, now that you think about that, I wish I could remember her name. In one of my communication classes in college, and one of the things I loved about grad school is that I was the youngest student in there. And everyone else, it was such a wide age range and different professions. And of course, there were teachers in there and librarians and then writers. And, gosh,
I felt like I was exposed to the real world.
Like,
not like in this fake prison where we're all the exact same age and we don't really know how to give each other advice.
Right.
You know?
The blind leading the blind, right? When we categorize stuff like that. And in this book, they actually go so far as to talk about the secularization of our society in general and how it's even made its way into churches.
I was just going to say that, like Sunday school type stuff. Yes.
So now, you know, there's men's groups and women's groups, and then this age group is together, and this age group is together, and this age group is together, and all the siblings are separated, and the husbands and wives are separated, and we're away from the elders, and there are very few things that come together. Don't get me wrong.
I was just going to say that.
I do think that men should talk with other men. I do think women should talk with other women. I do think there should be moms groups, and we should get together. I also think that we have got to put more emphasis on the mixed generations coming together.
Yes.
My homeschool children would probably not feel comfortable being with kids only in their age group. Then again, maybe they would. I would have to
I know what you
them.
mean. I know what you mean.
And be separated from their siblings. It's not that they can't be separated from their siblings. It's just like, why are we approaching religion, something as important as your spirituality and your faith, separate from each other?
There's a whole documentary that I watched around that, and I'm kind of with you where I'm like, I'm not 100% in that camp, but I think they make very interesting, worthwhile points when they talked about like the development of Sunday school and how it was essentially mirrored to the public school setup of like, okay, we separate them into different ages. And like I said, I don't feel so like, no Sunday school for kids. And I'm very torn on what we're going to do. We visited family churches where there is no Sunday school. We've visited Sunday school churches, but it's something that I think is very interesting and like I said, worth thinking about.
But I trust parents to use their discernment. And I think that that's something that exists in the homeschool community on a regular basis and is a given. And schools not trusting discernment. And not even teaching people what discernment is.
That's a good point too.
You know? But it is something that we trust parents to have in the homeschool community. And I'm sure it's interesting though, someone will take that comment that I made about like, I'm not sure my kids would be comfortable being separated from their siblings to learn about faith and being like, see, they can't be socialized, they can't do this. But our idea of socialization has become, can they hang out with people their exact same age and nobody else?
Exactly. That's so weird to me on so many different levels. I get what you mean, because the wider age range, having different people with different perspectives, it makes it, I don't know, I don't even know how to fully put it into words, but it's a more fun, well-rounded, interesting, wisdom-filled experience.
It's rich.
Yes, it's rich. There's the word.
It really is. It's really rich. It really is. And you get multiple perspectives.
Yes.
And you get it from the different age groups and different experience levels. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why Moms Group works so well. For us, like, you know, we can have the older moms and the younger moms and the moms of 4, the moms of 6, the moms of 1, the moms of 2.
Yes, you help each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guide each other. I don't know. This might be a weird segue, but I've been wanting to tap into it anyways. So all of that just keeps making me think about this article you sent me from Elizabeth Bartholet. I think that's how you say her name. So this, like I said, is something we've talked about a little bit on my channel, partially from John Taylor Gatto, because I also listen to those books. They're so good. If you are a homeschooling mom, and I know there's been a huge influx of homeschoolers because of the last few years, which is actually part of why I want to have this conversation, because I'm enough of like a conspiracy theorist to think that this influx of homeschooling is also part of potentially like a funneling towards controlling it.
For sure.
Kind of like what's going on with like cryptocurrency. I think there's some like reaching to control it. They can't let it get out of their hands. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was like, before we segue into that, totally, can we talk about a couple of myths?
Yeah, go for it.
Because you said, homeschool moms especially would want to listen to those books.
Yeah.
And those are actually 3 books that I recommend. Dumbing Us Down. Start off with that one.
Yes.
Because Weapons of Mass Instruction is much longer.
Yeah.
And then Weapons of Mass Instruction, both by John Taylor Gatto, and then Hold On to Your Kids.
I got to check that out.
The other thing I would actually recommend is the podcast documentary Sold a Story.
Haven't heard of it.
Oh my gosh. It's about
I'm
how
excited.
reading is taught and not taught in American schools, and the politics of reading and all of that stuff. So, and this affects us all. How we were taught to read, how we teach our kids how to read, how reading is approached, how kids who bounced around from different schools and moved a lot as kids, why it is they have trouble, like so many different things. It's so fascinating. And people who have listened to this podcast documentary finally have the words to describe the frustration that they feel either with their own reading journey or teaching their children as well. Anyway,
that's
reading those,
very interesting.
You don't have to be a homeschool mom to read those or listen to those, but I think it is a must read for homeschool, and then anyone who just wants to find out more about education in general. And then so reading.
You mean just all of those books? Or are you talking about this?
Read them all.
Yeah.
Listen to them all, whatever it takes to get that information in your head and in your heart, so you can come to the table in conversations like this with more information and words for how it is you're feeling, and tapping into your intuition that says something is off here, but I don't have the words or the information to describe what. Those resources will give you that information to apply it to your own life, because I think that people's individual stories are just as good of a resource as experts or books or whatnot. But when we're talking about homeschool, I think that there's a huge difference between homeschool and then schooling at home, like recreating school at home.
100%.
So anytime I'm talking about homeschool, I'm actually talking about teaching my children from a home point of view. There is this huge shift toward homemaking, homesteading, home birth, homeschool, and the home is at the center of all of this. And a lot of people misinterpret or just don't have the information. They're ignorant in the purest sense of the word. Ignorant meaning not knowing. So if you do not know what homeschool looks like, feels like, what the vibe of that is, a lot of people misinterpret it as recreating school at home. And it's in that space that a lot of people get frustrated, they get angry, they feel under-resourced, they feel like they don't have the patience. And because they're trying to recreate a system that is broken.
This is such a good point.
At home. So if anyone's listening to this and you have that lens of frustration or disappointment or lack of patience or feel lack of resources, I think the first step in analyzing all of this is understanding the difference between homeschool and then schooling at home.
Yes.
And I feel like Elizabeth Bartholet and other people who don't know about the heart of homeschool don't know what they're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're talking,
it's glaring.
They're literally going off of gossip and how it is they think what homeschool looks like. And they're like, they're isolated, they're unsocialized, their parents are religious zealots.
She tried to say that so many of them don't even have basic reading skills. And
which
I was
is
like,
crazy.
Well, she's like literacy. I'm like, what? The homeschoolers that I know have like advanced literacy skills. Anyways, go on.
And so I would question where they're getting these examples. They actually don't know about it. I think that's why you can look at things like articles from Harvard who are trying to, which is a business / liberal indoctrination camp.
And no kidding. Sorry, I was glancing to make sure to stop.
Okay. It's a business. It's a business.
Yes.
And then we're over here, on Instagram, if you will, showing people what homeschool actually looks like and showing the beautiful connection parts of all of it.
Yes.
And there's a disconnect there. How can people read this article and what Elizabeth is saying about homeschool and then look at all of this over here? And it's not for show. I can tell you that the vibe that these women are putting across, the freedom that they have to teach their children the way that they teach, there is genuine joy, peace, happiness, growth, lifelong learning, all of these things that our society is striving for. They want to thrive.
Yes.
And a lot of people coming from this super negative mindset are stuck in survival mode.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It reminds me of, like, my husband always gives the example of maybe like a police officer who's seeing like the worst car accidents and they're like very paranoid about, or nurses that might see a really bad, like a home birth gone wrong. Oh, I would never home birth. It's like, okay, but the actual numbers don't support the fear that you have. I think you've just been exposed to the worst. Right. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting while reading this article. It's like, well, if you're working in a really bad part of the country or the city and you're in CPS and you're seeing some really bad situations, it's like, I can't take that away from you. But to assume that that's everyone is so out of the realm of my immediate experience in all the places I've lived. Right. It's hard to even grapple with. I mean, one of the things that she talks about in this paper, and I'm just starting to read through it, so if you've read it all, you'll know more than me. But one of the things that she says at the beginning, besides the fact that she's claiming that like 90% of homeschoolers are Christian, which I'm like, where did you get that from? But okay, maybe that's true. Besides that, one of the things that she says is that homeschoolers really want to only expose their kids to their religious way of thinking and seeing things, and they want to hide them from the rest of the world. And I thought that's so interesting because there are certain things I'm trying to not expose my son to yet because of his age. Right. He's only 3, right?
That's right.
But in my husband's in my mind, and I feel like it's probably similar for you, but you can tell me, we've always said like we are going to be exposing our children to other worldviews, to the fact that like, hey, this is what we believe. We don't really know. But this is the conclusion your dad and I have come to, and this is why we think this. But we're not planning on hiding them from like society or that like other, like she says, people don't want them to be exposed to feminism or secularism. I'm like, oh, my kid's gonna know about all of that. He can make his own choices.
We live in a secular world.
It's exactly it.
And there is such a thing as secular homeschooling.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
huge. And they have their own religious doctrine in secular homeschooling.
Exactly.
It's so interesting because you're not outsourcing your parenting.
Yeah.
You're not outsourcing any part of your parenting, and that is criminalized. There are people who believe that you and I, because we refuse to outsource our
should be in
stuff,
prison.
There are literally people who believe they should be in prison. There's an acquaintance of mine I went to college with who, during all the nonsense of the last couple of years, said that people like me who are homeschooling my children are fringe. And we are the fringe of society, and we are dangerous and need to be dealt with. I operate from the stance that there is no one-size-fits-all answer for anyone, ever, when it comes to anything. And so it's so interesting that we would be pigeonholed into, like, you are only trying to teach them this one way, when literally the entire basis of my podcast, my life, my parenting, everything is honoring the individual and saying there is no one-size-fits-all answer for anything ever. Let's start tapping into perspective. Let's put on different lenses. Let's look at the world from a lot of different ways. We're actually encouraging that. So it's so weird because I feel like the disconnect in our world is huge to begin with. Yeah. And then the disconnect from our children, we're encouraged to be disconnected from our children.
That's
we're
exactly
encouraged to outsource our parenting and just like see them a couple times a day and enroll them in all these things and keep them super busy. And what? For the sake of what?
Yeah, for the sake of the society, to be a better worker. Yeah. It's and the irony of that is, I hate the word worker. I joke and use that word, a worker. Even though in some contexts it could be good because you're a hard worker. But that's actually the irony, is I think that there are a lot of homeschoolers that, not to say they're better workers than public school kids, but I've seen some homeschoolers, I'm like, okay, you are like really focused and driven.
Self-driven.
Yes.
Self-directed, because they have been exposed to self-directed learning, not you need to pass this test in order to prove that you're smart. Yeah. They haven't been pigeonholed into you're in the dumb class, you're in the average class, you're in the advanced class. Yeah. They haven't been pigeonholed into those things. Yeah. They are allowed to show up as themselves, which also brings me to another point. Well, I was challenged this week by someone who basically said that our society is obsessed with the nuclear family and individualism, and that public schools fill that gap. And she never really quite explained what the gap was in that, but it was really interesting. And I'm grateful for her comment because it highlights some misconceptions. I think that we don't have an individualism or an individualistic problem in our society. I think we have a narcissism problem.
There it is.
In our society. Yeah. And I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Our children are taught to be consumers. We're encouraged to be consumers. We're encouraged to look at me time. We're encouraged for all kinds of crazy things that are unhealthy.
Yes.
And it's the lack of honoring the individual that's causing problems. People are grasping for, look at me, I'm matter, I'm important, purpose, worth, all of these things that you find in motherhood, I'm sure we all find in motherhood. And then how we show up as homeschool teachers and how we show up in our communities and all of that. We have things that we have to work through, and we grapple with purpose and worth and all of these things, but we're showing up and we're doing the work.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with individualism. It has everything to do with the narcissism and trying to break away from that. So I feel like it's another one of those myths.
Yes.
It's semantics, but it's really significant semantics, because I think it's in honoring the individual child and honoring the individual mother and honoring the individual families that is where that sense of belonging, that genuine sense of belonging comes in. And I don't think you can get that in public school.
Yeah, I don't either. And I don't think it's very odd to say that there's an obsession with the nuclear family. To me, when I feel like you look at, like divorce rates or fatherlessness or whatever, I don't even understand how you could say that there's an obsession. It's like, well, it's an obsession we're not really doing very well at, then are we? Like, that's where my mind goes.
So strange. But I think what people are trying to get is these core things that make us human. And the public school cannot provide that for us. Government schools cannot provide that for us. And so if we can hold on to those convictions, so why are we talking about this when we are supposedly talking about homeschool laws and protecting our homeschool freedoms and things like that? I think it's because we have to have the conviction.
Yes.
We have to understand our whys. We have to be able to stand up in the face of disgusting articles and panels that misrepresent us, misrepresent our children, misrepresent homeschool in general. We have to be able to look at that and say, you're mistaken. These are our values. These are how we are aligning our actions and our values.
Yes.
And the best way we can do that and provide our children with a sense of love, security, belonging, the honoring of the individual, and encourage lifelong learning. The best way we can do that is to homeschool our children.
Exactly.
So
I'm right there with you.
This is frowned upon when it comes to government stuff.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways that we have to protect this is to understand our why.
Yeah.
And to sit down and really understand our whys of parenting and our education choices. To me, it is not enough to just blindly send your kid to the closest public school because the government has said, because this is your address, this is where you're going to go to school. I don't think that is automatically the best solution for that child. And so we're faced all the time with public education, though, and what it is we're going to do about it. And it's so complex. Oh, my gosh.
So this isn't that deep or profound, but just thinking about how you were saying, like, sending our kids off to just the local school or whatever. One thing that a lot of people say to me is they'll say, well, how can you be an expert at everything? Like, how are you going to teach your kids everything? I don't know how you feel about this. I have felt from the very beginning that it's not necessarily my job to teach my kid everything. I feel like I'm the ultimate guidance counselor. That's how I've always felt. Like, I will be able to teach him things, if God willing we have more children. I will share with them everything I know, and I will pour my heart and soul into them. But I'm supposed to really be observing them and their passions and their gifts and their callings. And if there's something that they're into that it's like, I can't really meet you there, and I maybe don't feel like I want to, like I can't dive down that path, or I'm not going to be able to match them and they're clearly skilled, then I will seek out someone to help my child, whether that's a class or a tutor or a club or the right curriculum or something. I just feel like I care more about my kid than the local guidance counselor will care about my kid. And so I have to steward that time, protect them, and bring them the resources that they need. It's not necessarily all on me. So when people have asked me that, I'm like, I'm not going to be his only teacher for forever for me. So that was something I thought about.
I love that so very much. Yes, let's talk about that. It's like real hard to get centered on this one because this is complicated. And I will say that this is an incomplete thought.
Okay.
But I feel like those questions of like, well, how can you be an expert in everything is a product of our expert-focused, expert-centric society, which is a facade. Oh, come on. It's just one person's opinion. Like, how can people be infallible? So
we've learned anything in the
okay,
last 2 years.
All the examples that we've given, and this is a really uncomfortable thing to say out loud, it's a hero complex. Okay?
That's good.
So you said police officers, nurses, teachers.
Yeah.
They are up on a pedestal, heroes. It doesn't matter if there are teachers who are molesting children. It doesn't matter if there are police officers who are doing things that they shouldn't. It doesn't matter if nurses who, nurses and doctors, they make mistakes too. They are human.
Yes.
They are human. But because of this hero complex, I'm also going to say something kind of uncomfortable, because I also feel there's a hero complex around motherhood.
Totally.
And that mothers can do no wrong.
I just got chills.
I think that is problematic too. That's problematic too. So what solution, what problem are you trying to solve here? Do you think that the solution is in an expert? Do you think it's one of the heroes?
Yeah.
Do you think it's in the moms? Do you think it's in the doctors, the teachers, the nurses, the firefighters, the police officers? Do you really think that anyone in this hero capacity? We've done everyone a huge disservice, because then all of those people feel like they can't mess up, mothers included, right? And so what problem are you trying to solve by constantly turning to experts? I think that what we're actually trying to do is, again, that purpose and worth. Are we good enough? Can we do this? The answer is yes. And you're not just doing it alone. Homeschool is not just the influence of the mother or the father or whoever is teaching them. It's the influence of so many.
Yes.
We're part of a community.
Yes. That's why I plugged Logan into a community right away. I know he's only 3, but it was we got to get this. I need other moms. You need other kids.
Even if it wasn't a formal community, you are still part of community.
Exactly.
You really, really, really are. And so any topic that we are wanting to teach our children, or we're expected by standardized testing standards to teach our children, or anything that they're interested in that we might not know about, there are curriculum out there. You are smart and capable. You can look this up. You are a product of a system that that everyone expects your kids to be put into. So if you went to that public school, you should be smart enough by the end of it to be able to teach your child everything that they would be taught in there. And there are people who argue, well, there's child development stuff in there, and there's teaching philosophies, and there's resources and credibility and blah, 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 blah. You have access to all of that information. Still, you have access to all of it. And if you're having an issue, you can say as the parent, I'm having an issue with this, let me find a resource. But you know what? I like to tell people, and I think it's so important, my peace doesn't come from just textbooks. It doesn't come from experts. It comes from perspective. So I use perspective as a resource. I gather other people's perspective on things, not their opinion. There's a huge difference between opinions and perspective.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I could tell you what my opinion is and just dump it on you. And then you have the choice to take that information, the words I just shared with you, and view it through the lens of, oh my gosh, well, I disagree with her opinion, or, oh, I totally agree with her opinion. And so you can just take it at face value, or you can say, interesting. That's her perspective on life. That's her perspective on that topic.
So you're saying you're using the words more as the listener, how you're choosing to perceive it. Interesting.
So we need to be stopped. Experts have opinions, right? They do. And they like to say our opinions are facts. Our opinions are the end all be all. And it feels less like they're sharing their perspective, but forcing their facts down our throat and refusing to acknowledge that there's more than one way of looking at things. So I do think that
there's more than one way of learning.
Right.
Keep going. Sorry.
So, it is partly in the presentation and how people present things. And anyone who presents things solely as facts and solely as opinion, I'm like, ooh, I bristle. That's where your discernment comes in, right? And as the listener. And so I could, even if people are being brash in their presentation of opinions, I can still choose to say, oh, that's just their perspective. So it's not it's a communication issue, really.
Totally.
And I do think it's slightly semantics. And also, I think that perspective can be an awesome resource.
Totally. I feel like there's a lot of talk in the last few years, especially around the concept of media literacy or fact checking things and understanding where real facts are coming from versus fake news and fake facts that are not reliable. And I feel like so many homeschoolers that I know actually have great media literacy in the sense that they're not, like when they talk about this, I feel like the conclusion always comes down to like basically just tracking down if it was done by an alphabet agency, and then we know we can trust it. And it's like, but isn't there more to it? Like, where did they get their funding from on this
100%
project?
I think part of having media literacy is understanding who's funding the media.
Just follow the money. Like so I think I know a lot of homeschoolers that I feel like have great fact-checking literacy because of this openness and this awareness that like, everyone's bringing their perspective to the table. Anyways, go on.
Sure. I also think that community can be a resource too. It's so interesting because people think that you can only learn music from music teachers. You can only learn, whatever. You can only get great book lists from librarians. You can only get this from this. Well, actually, there's so many people within your community that can come together and teach each other. And, there's so many wonderful resources. And I think that cannot be found in a textbook. That is found in person-to-person, face-to-face interactions.
Yes. Part of maybe this is a subject change, maybe it isn't. Right as I started talking, I'm like, is this even flipping off into that? I don't know. We'll see. For me, I felt like in school, I did not vibe with the way in which they laid things out. Even, like I mentioned to you that when I tested into the college, I tested into like a higher level English class. The way in which they taught English never made sense to me. Like I could write papers that would get graded really well. I knew how to properly form sentences, how to convey a thought, but the way in which they taught rules, this is like kind of a perfect example. I feel like I really grasped English from reading, not from their rules. And so for me, it felt like the weirdest way to teach something, and like I was being set up to fail. Like I would fail certain tests when the reality of the situation was that I was actually more of a proficient communicator than maybe Sally next to me who got an A on the test because she knew the rule and how it should be laid out. It's like, she's not going to be sharing these rules when she's, in a conversation with someone or in a debate or giving a presentation. And so really that's something like, speaking of textbooks, I am so deeply convinced that, and this was a quote, I think, from John Taylor Gatto that he said this, that everybody learns in as unique of a way, this is not worded properly, but like as their fingerprints. Yes. That learning is as unique as thumbprints, fingerprints. And when he said that, I was like, I just got chills again. I'm like, that is...
Right. And the only way to do that is to honor the individual. Not shove one kid into a class of 28 plus and teach them the exact same way and basically test them on whether they'll be able to spit out the right information.
And then if you can't, you're stupid.
Right. And you'll be labeled stupid forever. And your chance of advancing are little to none.
That was my mom's like saddest thing when I left school. She like looked around at me at the car and she's like, I don't like that you think you're stupid. You're not stupid. We're going to change this. And it was devastating to her, which I could see now as a mom, that I literally just thought I was stupid.
Right. I think what a lot of people are talking about, and even to a certain degree, this is hard for me to say, even Elizabeth Bartholet, I think that what people are grappling for is they see the need for change. Actually, I think she's a little bit different, but
we're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
I was trying to do the benefit of the doubt, and I'm like, it's like conforming. They want it to be conformist, while also it's like so hypocritical. It's crazy. Read the article. It's like, wow. I think people are after education reform. That's why we have levies. That's why we have all kinds of things. That's why we have hero complex stuff. That's why we have all of this stuff, is because we want education reform. It's a lot of really good people coming together and saying what we have isn't working. We need to change. We need to make changes. And then also people being really comfortable and not wanting to change and not knowing how to change. So they're saying we need change, but also I'm just going to send my kid to the closest government school because that's just what people do. And then I'm going to support it.
Gosh, it's so weird to live in a society where something is like just deemed, this is just what it is.
It's just what people do. It's just what people do. And so homeschoolers are threatening that way, the whole industrial complex of schools and what it is they're actually teaching and what it is they're, there's just so many things. So people are pulling their kids out for all kinds of reason because they recognize the need for education reform and they're taking a stand on it. And
it's
it is exciting, but it's threatening the system.
Yeah.
And for example, the area we live in, people say that there's this huge influx of people, and yet enrollment is down in schools.
I mean, what do you even do with that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if those are the facts,
Yeah.
throwing more money at it, to me, isn't going to solve the issue. And then trying to control it all, too, isn't solving the issue. Because, I mean, homeschool is under attack. And it's
Yes.
changing so rapidly.
Yes.
I'm afraid, like you, that there's going to be a huge grab for
Yes.
control. And one of the blanket ways that that could happen is making homeschool federal. Like regulating it on the federal level, and we do not want that. We do not want that.
We do not want that. Has everyone taken
note?
note?
Do not want that. I moved from Hawaii, a not very homeschool friendly state that requires standardized testing and reporting to the state and all of that. And it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. They can't even keep track, the Department of Education out there can't even keep track of the students that are in their schools. And I don't say this to be callous. I say this from a stance of, I'm friends with teachers, and I can tell you that a lot of kids are slipping through the cracks, if you will. And then it's weird to be a homeschooler and think that there are actually people who believe that my children are slipping through the cracks and that we need
or being abused.
Yes, and they're using abuse cases and random examples to justify why CPS should show up at my door, and I should be required to, not me specifically, homeschoolers in general, should be required to report to CPS, or that we should get mandatory visits from CPS. That is crazy to me.
Crazy.
Because I can't then use an example of a teacher sleeping with a student or abuse happening to be like, well, every teacher needs to be visited by CPS.
Exactly.
Every public school kid needs to be.
Or what about CPS losing kids? Like, I know that's not the topic, but if we're talking about another government agency, even though I know CPS is for profit, it's like they're losing kids. Like, it's one of the highest rates of human trafficking. I don't want to spit out a false fact, but you can go do some digging into this. This is legitimate, that a lot of kids get lost in the foster care system.
Right.
And, they would say, well, these kids are troubled. Are they running away? It's like, it doesn't matter. That's the point. I love my kid. I'm going to keep my kids safe. You don't have the greatest track record.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's how I feel about the DOE. That's how I feel about CPS. And it's so strange that they think that their messed up system is going to come in and somehow save my children.
Yes, exactly.
And your children and everyone's children. And it's just like, there's a need for reform, and that is not the solution.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little concerned in like the next 5+ years. And I think we're probably on the same page with this. And I hope I'm not derailing your thought. I think it's in the same vein, that there is going to be, like, I think that the media is obviously used a lot to further certain agendas. And I've been a little concerned that there's going to be something that blows up, or that they're going to make look like it blows up within homeschooling in order to get some traction for some of this stuff that they're trying to make happen. Are you just agreeing with that smile? I mean, she mentioned the Duggars in here in her article, and I was like, that's who I've been waiting this whole time. I've been thinking this whole time it's going to be the Duggars. They're going to blow up the Duggars. And she mentions them.
Crazy. Yeah. How on earth are the Duggars me?
Right?
How on earth is that even like a parallel example?
I know.
It's just crazy to me. Well, I don't think it has to be necessarily one big giant bomb of something that goes off. I actually think it's little things like ESA and school.
What's ESA?
School funding bills and like everything. That's why people need to know about this.
Yes, please tell us, Lori Beth. Tell us.
Oh my gosh. So school funding, school choice is, and I just did a podcast episode about this with Abby Ranella, and it's a must listen.
Okay.
But just know that there's a lot of ESA. You'll see ESA.
Is this like Harmony, Tech Trap?
Yeah, well, kind of. That's a public school partnership. And so what people want education reform. Like, these are good people who want good things for their children.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm a good person who wants good things for my children too,
Yeah.
right? And people are thinking that if the government just takes the funds and gives them to individual students and lets them follow the students, including homeschoolers, like, you get $1,800, you get $1,800, you get $1,800. Now you have school choice. Well, we already have school choice. We already have choices as to where we send our kids. Whether those are, I do feel sorry for people who say, well, not everyone can afford to send their kid wherever. I do feel sorry for the limitations that are put on families. I really do, whether it be school guidelines, but different entrance things that they have, whether that be cost associated or just finances or even grade level or whatever it is. But also every school can't accommodate every single person's choice, you know? So we already have school choice. We truly do. Yeah. Even when it appears that we don't, we do. And now they're trying to say, okay, we're going to throw money and it's going to follow the student. And that means we're also going to fund homeschoolers. But what the government funds, the government regulates.
Exactly.
What the government funds, the government regulates.
That should be like, ding, moral of the whole story.
That, truly. Yeah. That is at the baseline of all of this. And that's why so many homeschoolers are like, no, we do not want things like TechTrep. Which is the public school partnership here in the state of Idaho. One of the freest states to homeschool your children in. It's so brilliant. It's so wonderful. The homeschool communities are huge.
It's so cool.
And vibrant. And the children are amazing. And the moms are amazing. It's mind-blowing.
I know, it really is.
We're surrounded by natural beauty.
Yes.
And constant support. Yeah. And it's wonderful and beautiful. And now there are programs like TechTrep who want your vaccine records. They want your child to be tested. And you know what some families are doing? I found out this is a red flag.
I'm scared.
They are telling their children to take the standardized test on the computer and just click through and not answer anything and just fail. And so what do you think is going to... Yes, I know. So now those tests are going to be used against us as homeschoolers. My children have never taken those standardized tests. I don't teach to those tests. I don't agree in those standards. Again, because I want education reform.
Yes.
And the standardized tests aren't working. And I'm not going to participate in a system that's not working.
And let me say, if you're questioning the standardized test thing, the John Taylor Gatto books, he does a significant chunk on testing. Like I think this is obvious, but she's not just whipping this out of nowhere. Like, I don't like testing. I think it's pointless. It's like, we may feel that intuitively, but his books, to give you context, and then, sorry, keep going. He won like New York State Teacher of the Year with the public school system.
After teaching for 30 years.
Yeah, and then he won New York City Teacher. So he has 3 awards from New York State and New York City for being an excellent public school teacher. So him doing this, he's essentially like the ultimate whistleblower, and he really lays out why he doesn't think it's effective. So keep going with the test thing, but that's wild.
Well, they're going to use the tests against us, right?
Yes.
And they're going to be like, well, homeschool has to be regulated because all these homeschoolers are failing this test. It's like, oh my gosh. But parents, some parents, not all of them, are telling them to do that. I'm like, please stop doing that. Please stop doing that. And the best way to not do it is to not enroll in those programs anyway, because you're literally trading your homeschool freedom for $1,800.
Yeah. You know, and if someone we have friends in our community that tried for a little bit, they felt kind of financially desperate.
Yes.
And some stuff worked out so they weren't as desperate, but also they were willing to kind of cut some things. They started going through it and they were like, whoa, they instantly felt the clause. I mean, I don't know a nicer word for that, but come into their education and their home and their child's life. And they were like, nope.
Right. And remember we talked about homeschool versus school at home? You are signing up for school at home. Yeah. They won't fund religious curriculum. Some people say, oh, yes, they will. Oh, well, they'll fund certain ones that don't mention God and math problems.
Wow.
But they won't. If it mentions God at all, it has to be a secular curriculum. And so you losing your freedom to choose which curriculum is best for your child. Yeah. You're now teaching to the state standards and your freedom is gone. All the advice I could give you about how to have a peaceful homeschool, a productive homeschool, a loving homeschool, a patient homeschool, all of these things are out the door because you have opted to trade your freedoms for $1,800.
Yeah.
And there are some people who will say, well, I'm a part of these programs and it's not terrible. I talked to a nice person who knows nothing about homeschool most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Exactly. You're reporting your school at home to someone who understands school.
Yes, and this is kind of what my mom had to do back in California. And to be honest, she said it wasn't the hardest thing in the world back then, but I think things have changed a lot, and I would not enjoy that. I know when I've looked at the layout, I'm like, no, everything you said is exactly it. I don't even know how my mom got by with all of those things, but it was a lot more regulated in California.
Yeah, it definitely is. And actually, I won't use umbrella schools based in California for that reason, for the ties that the homeschool community has
I want
to the
nothing
Department
to
of
do
Education
with
there.
Any of that.
And I feel sorry. It's a hard situation for people who are homeschooling there for sure.
Yeah.
But this school funding, the school choice bills are a Trojan horse for homeschoolers. So a lot of homeschoolers are saying, we're not going to be part of government schools, because that's what they are. Public schools are government schools. They're government funded, government run schools. There are a lot of good people in there, really nice people. I have tons of friends who are teachers, tons, but they don't get to show up as fully themselves.
That's exactly it.
They have to teach what they're told to teach in the way that they're told to teach it, and they're constantly monitored. Yeah. There's no privacy in public schools. There's no support for the individual time that people need to develop lifelong learning, to study what it is you want to study, to have interest-based learning. There's not any time for anything. Yeah. It feels like, and having the public schools dictate our time as a family.
Oh my gosh,
individuals,
that too.
All of that. It's just too much. It's too much.
It's bizarre to have a system that claims so much, that things like, diversity is our strength. We want a diverse culture. Everybody needs to be creative, but then you want to slap everyone in the same conveyor belt. I don't know how that leaves a whole lot of room for a society to think outside of the box and be super creative and excellent at something when they've been forced to show up to something that maybe they don't care about 5 days a week, to do reports on things maybe they don't care about. And I just don't understand how you bring the best out of people that way.
That's right.
And anyways.
So that being said, people are coming to the table with those ideas and that energy of things need to change, or I want to bring up best in my students. I love and I care about them. I love and care about my child. I want what's best for them. And so you think that by accepting the public funding, the $1,800 to homeschool your child, that you're doing the best for them. I would ask people when they want to show up with that passion that they have, which is good. Yeah. In the moment of, I'm passionate about this. I want to provide the best for my child. I want to show up and do my best. That they have to widen their lens and their timeline for what that looks like, right? So it might seem like in the moment that $1,800 is a great idea. Yeah. But if you don't have the foresight to see how that could be jeopardizing your homeschool freedoms, or even how it's taking away your freedoms, I think that showing up and trying to do your best is like a moot point at that. It's like dies in the moment. Yes. Rather than so for me as a homeschool parent and having my hills to die on, I can't stand with my back up against the hill defending my children, right?
What do you mean by that?
So my hill to die on, let's say, is homeschool freedom. Yeah. It's lots of freedom.
We share that hill, but
it's a lot of freedoms. But I can't stand with my back up against that hill and being like, you're not going to cross this boundary. I need to be 20 yards out.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And I need to be seeing what's coming. And so what's coming is government regulation of homeschool. There are so many. If you don't believe me, go on the internet and see how nasty people are to homeschoolers and the myths and the lies.
It's truly mind-blowing.
People who believe that we should be arrested. It is, and that we're just a threat to society. Yeah. And we're raising idiot children. It's incredibly unbelievable to me.
It's incredibly unbelievable.
So knowing that, I have to stand 20 yards out and defend my family and my rights and my freedoms from those people and those lies. Yes. And I also need to be a member of HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense. Yeah. So because they're farther out than I am. Yeah. And they're telling us what's coming down the pike. So I am looking into them, leaning into them for insight, because they are professionals who are on it, right? Yeah. And that's when I lean into professionals and experts. But I'm also not going to put all my eggs in their basket.
That's exactly it. You're still educating yourself with the right language and showing up on podcasts to advocate,
Right. And then also getting to know my representatives and joining things like Homeschool Idaho.
That's so good.
Homeschoolidaho.org. They have all kinds of information on there about things that are coming down the pike and how it could affect homeschool. And Homeschool Idaho is also the keepers of the history. They're the holders of the history. And
interesting.
It's really important for people to understand the history of homeschooling so they understand that it was illegal in a lot of places. I have an interesting episode coming out this week about our umbrella school that we use. So that technically my kids, as a way to protect my kids, talking about like 20 yards out, I use an umbrella school for my children.
So you're all part of the same.
Technically my children legally are private school students.
Okay.
But they're schooled at home, if you will. But I still maintain my freedom and I report to them and they're accredited and all these things. There's a thing called umbrella schools. They're fantastic. But I found out the history of homeschooling in Michigan and how it was illegal. It was fascinating. So when you're coming into the homeschool community, I think it's really important to understand the history of it and then where you're coming in at this point in history. And then also the agendas of certain places that want to make homeschool illegal. It's actually illegal in Germany.
Yes, this is something I was waiting for you to go off on. For people who don't understand this, like we're not just conspiracy theory. Oh, they're coming for our kids. This is literally, it's illegal by imprisonment in Germany. We've given political asylum actually to families from Germany before who were in trouble for homeschooling and were going to be thrown back into prison. I mean, I feel like the direction that Germany has gone since like post-World War II is the goal for like the U.S. But yeah, I just saw a video the other day from a woman who's an expat, like used to be a U.S. citizen, is now living in Germany. And she's just going on and on about like how great it is that they don't allow homeschooling there and how so many, like the general German population sees it as child abuse. Like they've gotten to the point where the population agrees with that. Yes.
It's so
Keep going.
wild.
Sorry.
And so there are logical, loving people who also hold these incredibly toxic beliefs about parents' rights, what education looks like, what it's supposed to look like, lifelong learning. And then you have people who graduate from these institutions and then what? They're looking for wholeness. They're looking for purpose. They're looking for belonging. They want to read. They're just not a reader because they were labeled not a reader. Or I'm
not a reader either, but I'm an Audible person.
But they're not good at this or they're not good at that. And they carry that with them into adulthood. And into their parenting then, and into how it is we're showing up for our kids too. So it's like a double layer. We have to show up and do the work on ourselves and really reflect and understand where it is we came from, and then also show up for our kids and do better. And so understanding our personal history and then the history of homeschool are two very important factors when you're defending all of this. So I cannot recommend Homeschool HSLDA enough, Homeschool Idaho, or any of the state homeschool organizations. And then following any ESA bills, any school choice bills that are coming down the pike. Because I mentioned earlier, but maybe I didn't explain it all the way, that it really is a Trojan horse. So people are they're slamming the front door on government and saying, we're homeschooling, you have nothing to do with my child's education now. And then they're opening the back door and saying, but I'll take your $1,800 and your standards and your requirements and I'll do all the paperwork. And
this is really the peak of why I brought Lori Beth on, because the door has been opened for so many homeschoolers now. There's so many and it's amazing. But this is what I feel like new homeschoolers need to really understand.
That's right. And they're like, well, that's my choice. How is it affecting you? Well, they're going to use these programs against us. They're trying to regulate it. They're trying to corral all of us. And say, okay, this is what homeschool looks like, and this is how we're going to control it and regulate it in this state. And the only thing they have to go off of is people who are new to homeschooling, who have opted into these programs. And who are failing the tests on purpose, and they're going to say, no, we actually need to regulate all homeschoolers now. So even though there's the choice now, and choice is being presented, people really need to look with a discerning eye and a discerning ear at the choices that are being presented and understand what can come down the pike. Because be aware of Elizabeth Bartholet and the Harvard homeschool panel and all of these horrible things that these people are saying. Be aware of it, because people are going to say, Harvard says that homeschool should be illegal. Harvard says this, Harvard says that. Never mind, it's this one woman's opinion.
The thing is, even if you're not going to be someone who's like an advocate or going on podcasts or going to your local government, whatever, I think because, in my opinion, so much of the goal, or how they move the goal forward of making this illegal, is through media and cultural influence. You just being aware, just educating yourself and being a person in this world is going to be helpful, because you're going to meet people who are going to be like, well, you homeschool your kids. They're going to want to know. They're going to want to talk to you about it. Other homeschool moms, just knowing, just reading these books. Seriously, John Taylor Gatto is like my, I think the language he uses is so empowering and spot on. And then the other book that you mentioned, the podcast that I'm going to listen to.
Oh, Sold a Story.
Sold a Story. I think that it's just, even if you're not going to advocate for any of these things, for you, for your homeschooling journey and for your community involvement, whatever that looks like, I think it's so important to keep just diving down these wormholes. I sidetracked you again. I'm sorry. But
it's okay. It's really important for people to understand it and the effect that they have, because you're also, when you're homeschooling, yes, it's you teaching your individual family, teaching your individual child, but you're also part of a bigger homeschool community.
Yes.
And it's really important to be aware of that and to know how it is you're contributing to that, even inadvertently.
Yes, just like you were saying, like failing a test on purpose.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you talked about the history of homeschooling. This is on a side note, something that I want to research more, because in John Taylor Gatto's book, he talks about that, like when public schooling was implemented, he says it was not something that was like welcomed by all and like, yay. He's actually claiming, if I'm not making this up, that there were towns where like the parents had their guns. They're like, you're not taking our kids. And they had to supposedly bring in like the National Guard. So I'm very confused, because then Elizabeth Bartholet in her thing says, oh, no. Homeschooling has been widely accepted for like a or public schooling for a very long time. So, it's good to hear these different perspectives, do your own fact checking.
For sure.
Just because she's from Harvard, it's like, well, John Taylor Gatto is like a Stanford, like they're both from Ivy League institutions. So where do you land?
Right. And like, we have to be able to look past those words too.
What, Ivy League institutions?
Yeah, like Harvard. You see Harvard and you can just, it's a business.
Totally. But it's
it's
interesting in comparing like
business.
John Taylor Gatto to her. It's like, okay, you both are products of these upper league schools, but you've come out with very different conclusions.
And so this is a lot of information. And I think it could be perceived as a heavy, if you will. It's a real heavy that we have to now protect our homeschool rights, protect our homeschool freedoms, how it is we homeschool affects other homeschoolers, and all of that. And also trying to create a loving space for our kids.
Yes.
But I want to encourage people that you can do both. You can do both. And you show up full-time for your kids.
Yes.
And you show up part-time for the community. You really, truly. And by showing up for the community, you're also showing up for your kids too. And just understanding the laws and the rules and the regulations and opinions and countering that through your example. Because the best thing you can do is show them. We could talk about it all day long, but we can show them, and not through standardized tests, but the way we live our lives, the way we show up for our kids, the way we value lifelong learning, the way we study history, the way we study everything, and then show up in an articulate way to counteract all of this, because a time is coming in the very near future where we will be asked to stand up and counter this.
Yes, exactly. I'm very happy to know you. I feel like you were, not to be too deep or weird, but like brought into my life for a reason, because there really aren't, I don't want to be like, there's no other hills I'd die on, because there are, but homeschooling changed my life it changed my soul so significantly. I'm like overly attached to this freedom because I see what it did for me. But I'm a new mom essentially, right? And I am still so new as to like, what does this mean? How do you fight this? And so knowing you and how not only well-spoken you are, but how much involvement you've already had within your previous community and now this one, to just fight for the rights of your kids. I'm just really glad to know you. And I feel very like, oh good, I'll link arms with her. Where are we going, Lori Beth?
Nikki, I appreciate you so much. The passion that you show up with around this topic and motherhood in general, it's really important. And it takes a certain level of bravery that a lot of people avoid. And so I really appreciate you being brave and showing up and talking about the hard things, because it makes a huge difference in people's lives. I really appreciate you.
I don't want to just end it there. Is there anything else you feel like you came into this like, oh, I got to say that, or I just want to let them know this, or send them off on a final note, or just anything you want to say? I don't want to just end it without giving you that opportunity.
Sure. It's a big task. Parenting is a big task. Homeschooling is a big task. Living our convictions is a big task. I think that at the end of this conversation, with all of the different information, and I'm sure people are wondering how to move forward, right? How do you move forward? And I think the best thing that anyone can do is sit down and just reflect. on where it is you see yourself in this entire conversation, where you're at, where you'd like to be, and what steps you need to take in order to get there. And just really, for me, it always comes down to figuring out your values and then aligning your actions with your values.
Yeah.
And, sitting down and understanding that and identifying your values and then taking action on them can mean huge things like packing up your entire life and leaving Maui and moving to Idaho.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It can mean but it's exciting and it's good. And the more that my family has done that and that I have done that, just taking the time to sit down and really identify our values, writing them down, talking about them openly instead of having it be like this heady concept.
Yeah.
Putting a pen to paper and writing down our values, talking about them, and then figuring out our action steps next. And I can't tell people what that's going to look like, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about honoring the individual. And there is no one size fits all answer for anything ever, right? So if you, as you're leaving this conversation, I hope that you will take the time today to sit down and reflect, write down some of your values around this topic, and then next, in your next self-reflection time, because it can be a bit much at once, write down action steps that are going to get you closer to living out those values. And you're going to find so much peace in that simple exercise and so much clarity that a lot of this like overwhelm that we feel when we come to topics like this and that heaviness just kind of dissipate.
Yes.
And to me, that is like the secret to motherhood and the secret to homeschooling.
I love that, Lori Beth. And it's interesting you say that, because a friend of mine the other day was trying to do this whole thing of writing down her values and her dreams too. And she was saying she found it kind of hard to actually like really get it out. But once she did it, she was like, why was that so hard for me to say it? And it gave her a sense of clarity. So just to echo that, I had a friend that just did that, and she really benefited from it. And
I love it.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So guys, be sure to go over, and I'm gonna have all of Lori Beth's links down below so you can check her out online on her socials, her podcast. And then, like I said, we might end up putting this up around the same time. We'll see. Speaking of homeschooling, he was next door with grandma. So check out all of her stuff. It'll be linked down below. And if our podcast episode is up now, I will link you to that down below as well. Can you say bye? Can you say bye to the camera?
Bye.
Yeah. See you next time.